All right. Welcome to day 9 of shop management, guys. So, how do you deal with the difficult customer? This is really the last part in the first half of this class. When we get past midterm, we're going to keep talking about different things with managing a shop. I'm probably going to talk a little bit about profit and loss and revenue, how we calculate that. We already put up once how to calculate if somebody is meeting productivity. But we're going to start giving you guys some activities where, like, you're creating your own shop. What's the business model? Is it a sole proprietor? Is it an LLC? Things like that. We're also going to start looking at you creating your own help wanted ads. Your resume. Look at more, not so much just trying to get a job, but how would you want a resume to look if you were the service manager or the owner? How to create a business advertisement. Advertising is a huge part of the budget for any business. So that's all going to be in the second half. So let's finish up this half where we've been building on the customer experience, built by the employee experience. Last, 2 lessons ago, we talked about the multi-point inspection. We talked about selling and pre-scheduling and not letting somebody walk out the door without getting something scheduled. So now, what happens when you get them pre-scheduled? You did everything the right way. You built trust. This is a customer that keeps coming back to you. And because one of your techs left the drain plug out, the engine died. It seized. Car got fit 5-10 miles down the road. Customer got in an accident because the engine seized. How would you handle that? Take a couple minutes. I want you to think about it. So, here's what I need you to consider. The one thing you don't want to say is, I'm sorry. What's I'm sorry mean? When that customer comes back to you, when they call you because they just left, they're angry. They're exceptionally angry. So, the number one thing you need to do is you need to let them vent. Let them get it out. This is probably the hardest part of being a manager or running the desk. Let them get it out and just sit there. That's all. Take it. Don't try to defend yourself. Don't try to make excuses. Don't try to push back. Take it. And they might take a breath, and they might come back again. Keep taking it. Wait until you can tell they've kind of run out of steam. They're done. They got nothing else. Still, don't start with I'm sorry. It seems like an insult. How often do people say they're sorry and it means nothing? That's sympathy. When something's happened, the customer doesn't want sympathy. They want empathy. You got in an accident. Oh my God, that's horrible. Is everyone okay? I know if it were me and my family, I would have been scared to death. That's empathy. It's putting yourself in their shoes. I mean, honestly, if somebody caused you to get into an accident with your family, your mother, your kids, your husband, your wife, your sibling, what's sorry going to do? But if somebody could talk to you putting themselves in your shoes, or at least trying to, you're at least willing to listen maybe to what they have to say. So put yourself in the customer's shoes as closely as you can. The next thing, and the third, kind of the last step, tell them what you're going to do. I'm going to give you a loaner card while we take a look at what happened. We're going to cover the damages. Now, sometimes the customer's already going to have made a decision. You're not going to get the opportunity to fix it. They're going to say, well, I went to the other shop down the road and that's where my car is. Because you ruined the engine, they're going to take a look at it. Still do your best to offer the customer something. Here, let my shop cover the cost. Also, always ask them, do you mind if I call the other shop just to find out what happened? Now, you're not trying to find out what happened to argue with the other shop. This isn't about making yourself right. See, this is where, even in relationships with friends, with significant others, so often it ends up going wrong, is we get so worried about being right that we don't put the relationship as a priority. Where that's what we're talking about doing with the customer. Make the relationship the priority. So why call the other shop? Well, if you have a tech that made a mistake, like leaving a drain plug loose, you need to know that that's what definitely happened. If somebody is over torquing lug nuts and everything seems fine, because they do every lug nut to 120 foot-pounds, which is fine for maybe that tech's pickup truck, but way over torqued for that Honda. If you aren't aware of what mistakes are being made, how can you fix them? Because ultimately, if the mistakes keep going, that's where you're going to start eroding, breaking down any trust with other customers that you've built. You already have one bad circumstance. You don't want to compound it by making what we call a systemic issue, meaning that the problem isn't just a one-off human error, but rather it's a process problem. It's something that occurs every single time. You also don't want to let that go by, because as the shop owner, depending on the severity it is, depending on how somebody could get hurt, you might end up on the hook for it. So remember, in dealing with a difficult customer, don't say you're sorry. It means nothing. Some customers will take it as an insult. Listen, let them vent. They're angry. If for nothing else, you didn't fix it right the first time. And even if you did fix their problem right the first time, the way they perceive it is what they thought they asked you to take care of, you didn't. Maybe there was a miscommunication, maybe there was bad information. Regardless, it's on the shop, because the writer should have made every effort to get the right info. Does the customer sometimes still lead you down the wrong road? Absolutely. But what benefit do we get off of telling the customer they're wrong? They're still going to be angry. They're still going to walk away, and you lose any opportunity to make it right. That's a customer out the door. And I guarantee you they're going to take with them anyone they know. So, here's the deal. Let customers vent. Empathize. And how much you empathize is going to depend on what type of customer they are. If they're a quadrant 3, you better be ready to talk, because it's going to be a long story. They're going to want to swap conversations. It's going to be a long time. If they're a quadrant 1 or a quadrant 2, you better be quick and kind of know, wow, that's frightening. Here's what I'm going to do. Or, wow, that damage must have been bad. Or, well, I could understand why you'd be angry. I'd be angry if I just left and that happened to me. But then get right to, what are you going to do? Sometimes that's difficult because there are limits on what you could do. There's budgets. What if you're a manager and this is a dealership? There might be a very, very tight line on what you're allowed to do. You need to figure that out. Okay? You also need to figure out what the right thing to do is and get as close to that as possible. And you always want to make the offer to see how we can fix it or make it right. Again, just like we talked about on day 7, we want to give the customer as many opportunities to feel like they know what's going on, like they're in charge, like they're making decisions. Are you going to have some customers that are jerks and try and take advantage of you? Absolutely. But you'll be able to tell pretty quick if somebody's legitimately upset or if they're just trying to see what they can get. The customer who is just trying to take advantage of you, they're not going to care about you trying to make right whatever this problem is. They're going to keep pressing to get some specific item out of you. I can't do that. But if you give me your car, let me take a look at what went on, I'll see what I can do. And know when to stop arguing. And don't argue at the desk. You know, I don't care how much the customer raises their voice. Your job as the manager, your job as the boss is to stay cool. For those of you that might have forgotten, on day 1 I said, hey, you're going to trade 1 or 2 bosses for 1,000 bosses if you're the owner. This is where I'm getting at. Everybody's going to have their own needs. Everybody's going to have their own wants and their own agenda, and they're going to expect you to make it right. Now, you're going to walk away from that conversation feeling frustrated. That's normal. You're human. And one of the hardest things to do is not just go right to the tech who worked on the car and take it out on them. You're going to be tempted to. You're not going to get anything from that. You start yelling at this tech, and you don't even know what happened yet. What you know is you're frustrated from the conversation you just had. What's that look like to the whole rest of the shop? What's that look like for the shop morale? Remember what we talked about day 4 and day 5, how the employee experience sets up the customer experience. If you lose it because you're frustrated because you just had to deal with a difficult customer, you're not just affecting that employee, you're affecting everyone who sees it. Think about that. So, some of you might be viewing this early, but the day after this is slotted for is midterms. So at this point, just go back, rewatch the videos, see what you can kind of glean and pick up. Midterms always has safety questions on it. In this class, it is a 25 question midterm. Okay, it's not super extensive, but I want you to kind of mull over this information because very soon we're going to start putting you into different exercises of setting up your own shop. If you've looked ahead to the task, you can see that. So, start playing with this information in your head. Think about what you would want it to look like if you were the manager or you were the owner. I also want you to think about, do you still want to be an owner or a manager? And if you say no, that's okay. I get it. I've had different points in my life where I've had the ambition to go further, and I've had different points where I wanted to pull back. Your needs and where you want to go with this are very individual. There's not a right answer there. But what we're doing is laying out information that would make you more successful as a service writer, more successful as a manager or an owner, and as a tech, it will let you anticipate what's going on in the front of the house, which could be an area that that might frustrate you or challenge you if you're not familiar with it. All right? So I know this was a shorter one, guys, but good luck on tomorrow's midterm. If I put a video up for it, it's going to be a very short one. Other than that, if you have any questions, any problems, email me, let me know.